I'm Ron Berry. I go by Mezmeron. I'm a comedy stage hypnotist, but I'm also a clinical hypnotist. And I have created a fun little game or a fun little tool for self-discovery, and it's called the Pendulum Weegee. The Pendulum Weegee is a very fun thing to do. It'll help you to understand who you are as a person. It'll help you to make decisions in life. Won't necessarily predict the future, but you never know. All it really does is help you to look deep inside a round circle with the alphabet A through Z, the numbers 1 through 9 and a 0, and then a cross or an X in the middle with yes and no. Okay? That's really more than a weight on the end of a string. You can buy fancy ones, which, like I have here, which has a piece of crystal on one end and a chain. And it's just very nice. Just like to have a nice solid feel to it, a good weight. About 7 inches of chain or string, and maybe a little bobble on the top, just so you can hold it, always holding it at the same height. Okay, now to get your pendulum to work for you, first we have to calibrate it. But before we calibrate, let's even talk further about what makes a pendulum work, or how does a pendulum work. Now, there's nothing mystical, magical, spiritual, or supernatural really about a pendulum. It's basically you just talking to you, answering your questions. All this information is in your subconscious mind. All right. Let's say, for example, you have an image of your mind of, say, throwing a football. All right. Just the actual thinking of throwing a football, your mind is activated. Every muscle that would be involved in throwing the football, every single muscle that would be involved in that process, your mind is stimulated. Okay, it sends it from the brain all the way down to the arms, all the way down to the fingers. Each individual muscle stimulated. Okay, so in the same way, these little muscles right here in your fingers, they're going to be stimulated. So when we ask a question, for example, a yes or no question, your subconscious mind knows the answer, and we're telling it to make the pendulum move in a certain direction. And even though we won't actually see our hands move, we won't see the muscles in the finger move, those tiny little motions, those tiny little movements are going to go down to the pendulum and cause it to move in one direction or the other. Okay, it's pretty neat. First, we have to calibrate the pendulum. In other words, we have to teach our mind to send the signals to the fingers to cause the pendulum to move. All right. Now, to do that, we're going to use the yes and no cross that's on the board here, on the Pendulum Weegee board. Okay, let the pendulum come to the very center of the X and rest, and then lift just slightly off, so it's just hanging there. And ask yourself a question that has a yes or no answer, a definitive question that you know the answer to, that you know it's either yes or no. Okay, there's no maybe or if, ands, or buts about it. The answer is either yes or no. A good example would be, am I wearing a black shirt? And notice how the pendulum will begin to swing in the yes direction. Okay? Because I indeed am wearing a black shirt. The answer is yes, going this way. The no, going this way. The numbers 1, 2, 3, all the way 9 and 0. And then A all the way through to Z. Now if you get your own, you'll be able to enjoy this as much, but you'll be able to get a good idea right now as to how this works. So once again, to calibrate it, usually 3 to 5 questions is good to calibrate it, but you want to think about the question, concentrate on it, concentrate on the answer, and concentrate on the motion of the pendulum moving in that direction. Okay, for example, once again, am I wearing a black shirt? And notice how it begins to swing yes. Okay. I notice that my hand is not moving, at least not noticeably. Now, in fact, those tiny muscles are moving, and they're transferring all the way down to the end of the pendulum, causing it to swing. Now, we want to stop the pendulum, ask it another question, in this case a no question. All right. Is the sky green? Of course, the answer to that is no. And you begin to see the pendulum moving back and forth in a no fashion. All right. Of course, we know that that's the answer. Now, for me, it's already set up. So I am calibrated. It is working for me, yes and no. I could go on asking other questions to make sure, which if it doesn't swing for you right away, continue to ask questions. Concentrate on the answer, thinking yes or no, or actually concentrating on the question and let it tell you yes or no. You can ask yourself any number of questions. Because in the old way, in the old boards, sometimes that's all you could do is ask yourself yes or no questions. The beauty of the Pendulum Weegee is now you can ask yourself any question you want to ask, just like you would on a Ouija board, but you don't need to have somebody else with you. You can do this by yourself, the pendulum, and your own mind. Okay? For example, all right, the letters A on this side all the way up to Z. The letters on top, A all the way to Z, and then the numbers. Okay? I wanted to ask myself some questions that needed to be spelled out. For example, I sat down, like I said, for a couple of hours, and I asked myself about spirit guides. I actually got a name of a spirit guide. I asked how many letters it was first and said 8 letters, and turned out that my spirit guide's name was Jushmeel, Jushmeel. I asked, is this a phonetic spelling? And it said yes. I went on and asked it quite a few other questions that are personal for me that you'll find out for yourself if you continue to ask yourself, is my spirit guide present? And it's swinging right now, yes, meaning my spirit guide is present. Okay, and then I wanted to ask, if my spirit guide is present, do you have a name? And the answer is yes. Okay, so then I want to know what is the name. Okay, basically I'll ask, can you tell me your name? And notice the pendulum begins to swing to the side. And it's swinging right on line to the 8. There are 8 letters in the name. Now I want to make sure that this is right, so I ask again. I want to make sure I know what it swings to, so I confirm. It swung toward 8. Are there 8 letters in your name? And it says, what is the first letter in your name? And you notice how it begins to swing, and I'm watching, and you have to watch closely here. And I have it is actually swinging toward the J. Now you have to understand that a lot of these are going to be phonetic spellings. Not all spirit guides, not all people know how to spell. So a lot of these spellings won't be 100% accurate. So you can ask if these are phonetic spellings, do you know how to spell this, that, and the other, and go on from there. Okay, so just, in a sense, just like a Ouija. So anyway, that's really all there is to the Ouija pendulum. You can get yours online. You can go to my website at www.mezmeron.com. That's Mezmeron.com, and get your own Pendulum Weegee. It's a lot of fun. Have fun with your pendulum.